I'm sure you share my fury and the fury of many serving officers. In fact, I go so far as to say pretty much every serving officer and the public generally about what has happened to Sgt Martyn Blake today. This is the guy who in 2022, in the line of duty, opened fire on a gangster called Chris Kaba. Chris Kaba had been pulled up by the police. He was driving an Audi in Streatham in South London, and that car had been used the day before in an armed robbery. So there's no questioning the legitimacy of pulling him up. He drove directly at the coppers, including Martyn Blake. Martyn Blake is a sergeant and a firearms officer. He opened fire and Chris Kaba was killed. Again, to great fury, poor old Sgt Martyn Blake ended up in the Old Bailey charged with murder, but was in 2024, last October, sensationally, as they say in the press, sensationally acquitted. You would have thought that would be the end of his ordeal. I remember Mark Rowley, the Met Police chief, coming out and saying what a great day this was. I would argue that if I was Mark Rowley, I wouldn't have let him go to the Old Bailey in the first place. I don't know what. However, so far so good. Today, the Independent Office of Police Complaints, these are the people who investigate complaints against coppers, have issued a statement saying that poor Sergeant Blake is now going to face a gross misconduct inquiry, which could, well, you know, which would ruin his career. I mean, his career is pretty ruined already. So for the IOPC, a court of the land, 12 men honest and true, and women of course, a jury acquitted him. That's not good enough. They say there is evidence to suggest he may be guilty of gross misconduct. This is a disgrace, isn't it?
Well, you just used the expression, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
It's not, it's nowhere near good enough. You know, out there, at the moment, there are people wanting to cause havoc in London and across the UK. People, there's a lot of organised crime at the moment in Britain that we just haven't got on top of. And they use guns, they will use anything to get their way. We know there's a terrorist threat to this country. There is a thin blue line, an incredibly thin blue line, that protects us from those people. I don't know whether you could do it, Kevin. I couldn't go out there and face that threat every day. These people have to be vigilant all of the time. He was put in front of a jury and he was found not guilty. And now they're revisiting this. You know, it just feels like, you know, how many times do the bad people seem to have the lawyers on their side all the time? Then you're a good person, a police officer protecting all of us, the lawyers seem to be against such a person. You know, my blood boils really.
Yeah, mine does too.
It's outrageous. And you know, I don't know, this is what I understand. I don't have it for confirmation, but do you remember shortly after this sort of whole business was taking place, the Met Police comrades of this man basically down there, they said, if you aren't going to support us, why should we protect this? And the SAS had to be flown in because London was basically defenceless. We had no, you know, police officers with arms. And now, yes, of course, police officers should, you know, hit high standards, but he was found not guilty. And now this whole thing is being opened up again. I just sometimes think the people that think they run this country in these organisations, they just have no understanding of how hard it is to undertake these sorts of jobs.
I've spoken to coppers today, and I mean the level of rage is off the scale.
Yeah,
and
quite right
they say that the IOPC hate the police, and they are desperate to get a firearms officer, you know, to you know, nail a firearms officer. And poor Sergeant Blake is a victim of this desire on their part. Now, I'm going to read now the statement from the IOPC Director Amanda Rowe. The first paragraph is well worth talking about. We understand the impact this decision will have on Chris Kaba's family and Sergeant Blake. Note the order.
Yeah.
Exactly. The first concern is for Chris Kaba's family. And by the way, they're innocent. It's not their problem. But he was a gangster. As simple as that. someone whose life ending in that way was no great surprise, to be honest with you. So let's not have any of this claptrap about he was a wonderful family man and everybody loved him and all that. He was a do-badder. He was a no-good guy. We understand the decision this will have on Chris Kaba's family and Sgt Blake, and acknowledge the significant public interest in this case, particularly among our black communities, firearms officers and the wider policing community.
You can see what's at the forefront of their mind, can't you?
Yeah, Chris Kaba is was a man of colour, I suppose I should point out, although I don't think it's particularly relevant, but clearly the IOPC does. This is a decision we have taken based on examining all the evidence, views of all parties, and by applying the thresholds set out in legislation and guidance which govern our work, and so on and so forth. They say that what happened in the Old Bailey, the court, the highest court in this land, essentially, clearly has lower standards than the IOPC. This, honestly, again, to call this as an outrage is the understatement of the century. This is disgusting, isn't it?
You know, there's all sorts of allegations in the past, you know, that if someone's a wrong 'un, the police will find a way of getting you. I've never, you know, I'm sure that has been the case in some places, but it seems to be the other way around as well. It seems to be that these people, and I'm very interested in that, I'd love to have been the fly on the wall with your conversations with those police officers. I've heard something similar over the years, is that these authorities seem they don't believe in the police.
Yeah.
And the most important thing to them is a racial ideology that I think we've all had enough of. And it's not unrelated. I was watching your interview with, you know, the Marine, the guy from the Marines.
Yeah.
And they always, don't they? They can't ever really look at the substance of an issue, which a court has already decided upon.
Yes.
They're always playing this race card. It's always the race card. I think we've all had enough of it.
I couldn't agree with you more, Tim. Obviously, the Police Federation, the Coppers Union, is not at all pleased. This is Matt Kane, General Secretary of the Police Federation, the Metropolitan. So this is the guy in charge of London Coppers. He said this is frankly a nonsensical ruling by the IOPC that will shock police officers across London and indeed the country. Police officers should not have their livelihoods or liberty put at risk for performing what unequivocally, as has been found in a court of law, is their lawful and appropriate function. To use a now popular statement, what Sgt Blake did was to shoot Chris Kaba in the line of duty.
Yeah.
It was part of his job. He had to make a split-second decision, and don't forget that a car being driven at people at full pace is a deadly weapon, a 3-ton weapon. He made a split-second decision and Chris Kaba bit the dust. Now, I think we need to bring in rules and regulations that protect firearms officers from actually even being brought into courts of the land, except in extraordinary circumstances. Yeah. I don't think he should ever have been in the Old Bailey, but to subsequently have to go through a tribunal, another trial, if you like, by the police complaints office is, you know, it's appalling.
Look, a corrupt police officer should have the book thrown at them.
Yeah.
You know, a police officer who is reckless should have the book thrown at them. But there were probably people who were, from what I understand of this situation, people would have probably died if he hadn't shot that car.
Yeah.
He protected life. And absolutely, that worked. We should now protect him. But what we're doing, we have authorities turning on him. It's if I use the language I wanted to at the moment, Kev, we'd be struck off.
Yeah, we'd have been off air 10 minutes. I mean,
but it is a bleep disgrace. It really is.
Yeah.